brightest days, from the darkest nights, from the sunny days. I hope you learn something. I hope you learn something. I hope you learn something from the stormy seas, from the brightest days, from the darkest nights, from the sunny days. From the stormy seas, from the brightest days, from the darkest nights, from the sunny days.
Howdy, howdy, howdy. Welcome to the daily All Hat No Cattle News Rodeo. I'm your host, Hat. Pardon the video being a little weird today. I'm having a heck of a time with the settings. The lighting has been really off lately. So I guess it's kind of grainy, kind of oversaturated. But honestly, it's the best I can do for now. I've been thinking about trying to get a better camera. But to be honest, this one I've got here, it's a Logitech 1080p. It's about the best one I can find in a decent price range. So maybe I just need to work on the lighting more. Anyway, enough about me. Let's talk about technical difficulties beyond the camera. And that is the fact that we are now on fiber internet here at Casa del Sombrero. Yes, as of yesterday, we have been hooked up to the fibber. And it is wonderful. 1,000 up, 1,000 down, rock and roll, hoochie coo all day, party every night. It's incredible. Even through my VPN, I'm getting massive speeds, and of course I tunnel OBS under the VPN so as not to throttle it at all. Right now I'm coming to you on 4 channels, YouTube, Trovo, Twitch, and DLive, all at 60 frames per second and at 1080p. What more can you ask for, honestly? So enjoy, enjoy, enjoy. And with all that said, I forgot also, yes, we started Far Cry 5 this morning on the gaming podcast. Got through the first kind of setup mission, the island, if you will, if you're familiar with the game. Cleared off the island, and now we're on the eastern half of Hope County, going after, I believe it's Faith, her section, Faith Seed, I believe that's her name, and the Angels, doing all that right now. I got my first sniper rifle, the SVT, and I'm hoping to save up for a better scope, but so far so good. And I figured out, by the way, that there is in fact a save feature. I thought it was only chapter saves, but I was wrong, it turns out. So another good thing to know. All right, let's get to the show. First off, our opening Babylon Bee bookend. This is the one on the left from their sports section. NFL player announces he is gay is switching over to soccer. Dateline Las Vegas, Nevada. The Raiders' Carl Nassib, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, announced he was gay this week, becoming the first openly gay player in NFL history. There has been one other gay player in NFL history, but he did not come out until after he had retired, just to say. Shortly after the announcement, going back to it, he also announced he would be switching from football to soccer, or as they would say anywhere else in the world, football. Quoting him, "I have come to the realization that I am gay," he said in an emotional interview, "and coincidentally, I will also now be playing soccer going forward." Nassib said the realization that his true felt identity was as a soccer player coincided with his discovery that he was gay, but that the two don't necessarily have any kind of correlation. Quoting him again, "It's a complete coincidence. Honestly," he said, as he removed his Raiders jersey and put on an LA Galaxy shirt, "I like men, and I also like to lightly kick a ball around a field while not scoring any goals. There's no relationship between those two facts." Close quote. Nassib added that it's hard for him to lead the Raiders as a gay man, but ultimately soccer is a better fit for him. The press then tried to ask him a question, but he flopped on the ground in pain, claiming to have been attacked by homophobes. This is actually true, Michael. This gentleman has come out as gay, a Raiders player. Happened just a few days ago. But obviously the soccer part is the Babylon Bee. But yes. And speaking of Far Cry, Michael North says he is into Far Cry 4 right now, about 30% into it, he says. I also have Far Cry 3 and Far Cry New Dawn. I don't know what New Dawn is. I haven't researched it yet. I guess it's a kind of a standalone to Far Cry 5. Right along. Not a great day on the market. Yesterday, as you remember, the market regained a lot of its losses that it had incurred the previous 5 days. But today was really more of a placeholder than anything else. The Dow was up barely 0.2%, not even $70 a share added on to its value today, closing under 34,000 yet again. The S&P 500 was up just over 0.5%. NASDAQ, big winner on the day, up almost 0.8%. But again, no real strong gains today. Gold slipped yet again, well below the $1,800 an ounce mark. Crude oil slipped slightly, still above $73 per barrel of West Texas Intermediate sweet crude, however. And Bitcoin is trying to stage a comeback after being down dramatically earlier today. I should say yesterday, excuse me. But in earlier trading, Bitcoin was down to just below 29,000 per coin, but it has since rallied and it's now sitting at 32,400 and change. So an interesting day for Bitcoin. You may remember that China shut down another of its crypto mining operations just today or yesterday. So China is trying to completely back out of the crypto market, and a lot of people are selling based on those revelations, but a lot of other people are just sitting there banking the savings that they're making by buying right now. And again, I'm not a financial advisor. I am not advising you in any way what to do or not to do. But a lot of people are saying now's the time to buy Bitcoin because it's crashed from its previous 64,000 plus mark, but that was just a few weeks ago, and to charge in because it's looking to go up. And there are some people who have been bullish on Bitcoin for a long time. Others have been complete zero-sum bears. So hard for you to pick and choose. I did find this story rather interesting, though. Perhaps a bit of a point to the future of Bitcoin. There is a outlet called Van Eck. They are an equity firm, and they currently are waiting for the SEC to pass a judgment on their proposal for a Bitcoin ETF, which is an exchange-traded fund, which basically it's like a mutual fund that's based on an index, but instead of buying it through a broker, you can actually buy the shares as if they were stock. That's what an ETF is. And so VanEck wants to start a Bitcoin ETF, and the SEC is dragging its feet and hasn't given it an approval one way or the other. So while that's going on, VanEck today submitted paperwork on a preliminary prospectus with the SEC to launch the Bitcoin Strategy Fund, a new Bitcoin futures mutual fund. So this would be Bitcoin futures traded through a broker. Per the prospectus of the Bitcoin Strategy Fund, quote, the fund seeks to achieve its investment objective by investing under normal circumstances in Bitcoin futures contracts, as well as pooled investment vehicles and exchange-traded products that provide exposure to Bitcoin. The fund does not invest in Bitcoin or other digital assets directly. Furthermore, the prospectus also mentions the fund seeks to invest in Bitcoin investments so that the total value of the Bitcoin to which the fund has economic exposure is approximately 100%. So, and very, very interesting, very interesting. If you're a bear on Bitcoin, probably not good news. But if you're a bull on Bitcoin, you might see this as a bit of a bellwether. So we'll have to see. And yes, not sweating here today, Ray. Another very mild day here in southeastern Wisconsin. All right. Skullcram says in the DLive chat, time to bail in coins, U.S. government to get involved. Yeah, the government does want to tax it more, but I don't know. I mean, you guys know what I've been saying about Bitcoin. I said it looks like an interesting concept, and I like the idea that it's basically a finite currency that, except for mining operations, you can't create more Bitcoin. In fact, the mining operations have been having their output every so often. Now it's down from I think, 40 coin per mining operation down to 6.4 coin per mining operation. It's dropped dramatically, and the mining operations are going to cease in about 2040, 2044, somewhere in there, and that'll wind up with about, I think they're estimating about 21 million Bitcoin in circulation total at the end of the mining operations. And then after that, they're going to start giving some type of, I believe, monetary awards or funds awards to replace the Bitcoin award. But I've worried about government intervention, but I see the bull market that says that Bitcoin will weather any attempts by governments to throttle it because of its blockchain technology that is evolving over time. It is getting better and better. And ultimately, I don't know. I don't want to tip my hand one way or the other as to how I feel about it. But let's just say that I think people who are bullish on Bitcoin, this looks like a great opportunity with it down as low as it is. Certainly, yeah, I mean, we're talking 40+%, 50% lower than it was just a little while ago when it was up over 64,000. It's up over 32 now. So, you know, the Bitcoin has been a study in boom and bust. So we saw the boom. Perhaps now we're seeing the bust. Bitcoin was down. Again, it's a little under 29,000 earlier today, but it rebounded. So we'll have to see. We'll keep a lookout on this. All right, moving right along. From Breitbart, headline says it all. White House locks down Joe Biden after critical messaging errors with reporters. And this article just does my heart good as it points out how completely wrapped in bubble wrap 46 asterisk is. We've heard over and over again his direct statements to the effect that he is being manipulated by his staff. They tell him who to call on in press conferences, whenever, the few times there ever are them, and in what order he is supposed to call on those reporters. They are always friendly outlets. He never calls on anyone tough like Peter Doocy. He'll take a shout out from Peter Doocy on occasion, a shouted out question, to be more accurate. But he gets yelled at for that. He'll say, "I shouldn't be talking to you guys. They're going to get mad at me. I'm going to get in trouble." Is another one of his common phrases. I'm going to get in trouble. Dude, you're the president of the United States. The thing with Trump was that he never did what people told him to do, even if it was in his best interest. Trump was Trump. It's one of the reasons he got elected. Although, of course, nothing happened in 2020. Nothing happened at all, YouTube. Nothing happened at all. It was completely above board, the most fair and honest election in U.S. history. Honk, honk. But that was Trump. And Biden, meanwhile, is basically a coward. I don't think there's any other way to put it. He's a coward. And so today was supposed to be the big reveal about the new child tax credits. As you know, the government's going to start spending money hand over fist to some 80+% of American households with children and handing them money not because they need it, not because they've done anything to deserve it other than have a kid, which I'm not saying is a small feat by any means. I think it's great. If you have children and you raise them properly to be responsible adults as opposed to whiny little crybabies like we have all over America now, then perhaps you're doing good for society. But this is just an extension of the nanny state. This is designed to make people more reliant on the government for their income. We were initially told as it was being announced that it was going to be temporary, only through December, as a way of giving families relief from expenses during the COVID lockdowns, which again were caused almost, not nearly, not fully, but almost nearly exclusively by blue states, blue cities, blue governors, and are still taking their time getting people back to work because they're still paying people that extra $300 a week in federal unemployment benefits above and beyond their state benefits. But Biden recently came out and said, oh, by the way, I want this temporary thing to become permanent, which we've been saying all along. The Republicans have been saying all along, anytime a Democrat proposes a short-term social safety net solution, it's going to become permanent no matter what. That is their goal. And as we have all seen, a government subsidy program pretty much never gets taken off the table. I don't care what administration it is, they stay there. It is disgusting. But instead of Biden coming out today, standing in front of the press and reading off a teleprompter, which he always does, even at the G7 summit, he read off a teleprompter whenever possible. He didn't show up this morning to make this announcement. Instead, the White House put out a social media press release, obviously crafted by his handlers. And Jen Psaki came out today and did a little announcement on it at her press conference. The big kickoff for the administration was Harris delivering a speech on this handout in Pittsburgh. Don't ask me why Pittsburgh. I have no idea. Who knows? Michael North says in a D-Live chat, I thought the Fed unemployment boost ended. It depends on where you live, Michael. It depends on where you live. A number of red states have either stopped them as of this weekend or will be stopping them in the next couple of weeks. I believe the furthest one goes until mid-July. I believe that's the last of those. But a number of blue states are keeping it, although some blue states are talking about ending it because they're seeing their economies suffer too. And Ray says here in Arizona, if you've gotten the vaccine, you don't need a mask, he asks. We pretty much are mask free here in Wisconsin. A few places here and there ask you to wear one. Many of them are saying that masks are, quote, recommended. Whatever that means, but we're doing pretty well here in Wisconsin, I have to admit. Our governor still has blood on his hands, so does our mayor here in Kenosha, but at least they're handling the COVID thing somewhat decently. I'll give them that. All right, moving right along. January 6th is the gift that keeps on giving to the Democrats. The riot allowed them to paint all Trump supporters as white supremacist insurrectionists, because for some reason we're told that a riot in which no firearms were involved whatsoever, except the one that shot one of the people involved in the riot, an unarmed woman who was not posing a imminent risk to anyone, and we still don't know the name of the person who shot her, at least not officially, nor do we know the reason. We just know that they've been quote-unquote cleared of any wrongdoing. But so an insurrection that was also white supremacists with no with no logic or reasoning or evidence to back that up. There's nothing at all to show that the rioters were white supremacists. But again, if you can throw something at a Trump supporter and hope it sticks, then by God, you're going to throw it. So what happened, of course, was President Trump was kicked off of all social media almost immediately. Then he was impeached over something that he didn't do. Yet again, both impeachments over something he didn't do. And he had a bunch of contracts in New York canceled, and one of them was a golf course contract. And now the Trump organization is suing New York City because of that loss of the contract. It says here, the company accused the city of wrongful termination of the contracts according to the suit filed on Monday in state court in Manhattan. And this, by the way, is from the Washington Examiner by Mike Brest. Quoting the Trump organization, there can be no dispute that we are not just meeting but exceeding our obligation to operate a first-class, tournament-quality daily fee golf course. The city has no right to terminate our contract. Mayor de Blasio's actions are purely politically motivated, have no legal merit, and are yet another example of the mayor's efforts to advance his own partisan agenda and interfere with free enterprise. Now, of course, de Blasio's office is saying they did this because Trump broke the law. Here's the thing. Trump is not the Trump organization. The New York City didn't have a contract with Trump. They had a contract with the Trump organization. Even if you grant them that they have the legal standing to cancel the contract on the organization, that there's no proof at all that Trump did anything illegal. He has yet to have been charged with inciting a riot or whatever, because he didn't. We all know the words he used: make your voices heard peacefully. The term "fight like hell" has been used over and over again to attack him, when in fact we've seen the supercuts of Democrats from years ago up till now using that exact same phrase, talking about getting out their base and fighting whatever Republican thing they hate at the moment. So again, the double standard is beyond huge. It's absolutely cosmic. And by the way, just in case you thought it was just the Trump golf links at Ferry Point that got the contract ripped. According to the article here, New York City canceled 3 other contracts with the Trump organization in January. 2 were for ice skating rinks, and 1 was for a carousel at Central Park. Yeah, so these things just ripping into Trump by making it harder for local people to relax. Good call, de Blasio. I tell you, never mind, I was going to say something that would get me in trouble. Let me just say this, though. Don't forget, today is primary day in New York City for the mayoral election. Curtis Silva, or is it Sliwa? I always forget. The head of the Guardian Angels organization, noted for helping protect New York City citizens back in the 80s before Rudy Giuliani started cleaning up the mess that David Dinkins created. He's running for mayor, I believe his 2nd or 3rd try. But it is New York City after all, so it's going to be a Democrat mayor most likely. And I understand it that Andrew Yang isn't doing all that well. He may come in 2nd or 3rd. We don't know for sure yet. I'll be keeping an eye on the returns and give you the full breakdown tomorrow. But the guy who's in the lead, I can't remember his first name. Last name's Adams. He's, I believe, a Brooklyn councilman and also a former NYPD officer. I believe actual officer in the NYPD, a command officer. But he, one of his aides, campaign workers, was stabbed severely in broad daylight in Brooklyn this weekend, walking down the street, and someone just came up to them and started ramming a blade into them, knocked them to the ground against a parked car, and stabbed them at least once more, and then ran away. Broad daylight. And I've got a story coming up in the Law and Order block. Forgive me, by the way, I forgot to tease the show. But a story coming up in the Law and Order block about a young woman in Chicago who was stabbed to death just blocks away from what used to be known as the Sears Tower, now called Willis Tower. And I'll have a story coming up on that. But again, that's in the Law and Order block during the after show. So, article here from the depending on where you go to school, either the Epoch or the Epoch Times. I've heard it pronounced both ways by people who work for the organization. Just so you know. But I'll go with Epoch Times. It's easier to pronounce. James O'Keefe is killing it, folks. Absolutely killing it. I believe you remember last week there was a local Fox News reporter out of Houston who has been recording colleagues and brass and sending those tapes to James O'Keefe at Project Veritas, showing all kinds of restrictions on reporting, specifically on drugs like hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, and their possible uses in treating the COOF, the Chinese Communist Party virus. Also, she had a story on Bitcoin she wanted to do, and it was killed because the brass said that it was a story that wouldn't appeal to their black viewers, because I guess black people wouldn't be interested in possibly making millions of dollars investing in Bitcoin. That would be horrible. Ray says in the Dealer chat, I thought Wang was moving to Georgia. He only wanted to do that so he could vote in the election and then get thrown in jail for election fraud. And then when he found out he would get thrown in jail for election fraud, suddenly that didn't sound like such a good idea to him. Once again, the left never putting their money where their mouth is, but instead putting everyone else's money where their mouth is. But anyway, so that's what happened last week with Project Veritas, and I highly suggest you watch the Timcast IRL interview with that female reporter from Fox News. It's a great interview. She has a lot of really good stuff during the show, and then she does a very interesting after show segment, which you have to subscribe to Timcast IRL in order to watch. Highly suggest you do. Anyway, we're not done with just Fox News Houston. Turns out CBS is on the block too, specifically CBS outlet in Metro Detroit. This reporter's name, by the way, this is by Jack Phillips from the Epoch Times. The weather reporter's name is April Moss, and she's with CBS 62 in Detroit. And during the middle of a Sunday segment doing Detroit Metro weather, she dropped this bomb. Quote, and speaking of a brand new week, I will be sitting down this week with Project Veritas to discuss the discrimination that CBS is enforcing upon its employees. Tune into Project Veritas for my full story. And then she went on with the weather. There you go. She's been with CBS 62 since 2012. And the Houston reporter I mentioned from Fox 26, her name, by the way, is Ivory Hecker. I forgot that. Pardon me. Ivory Hecker. And she said that she had done a story about a Houston doctor who was getting certain results with a certain drug that a certain president had said looked promising for treating the COOF, the Chinese Communist Party virus. And they told her to take that out of the piece. She was quoting a doctor, and they told her to take it out of the piece. So, yeah, there's stuff going on, folks. There's stuff going on. Am I still on YouTube, by the way, after saying those two names? Yeah, I am, believe it or not. All right, so back to the Biden White House, because it's just too much fun. Every goal that Biden has set for his administration was a goal that had either previously been set by the Trump administration or a goal that was already well on its way of being met. I remember he said, lying through his teeth, when he promised that there would be 100 million doses of the vaccines given in his first 100 days, that we were already well on the way to doing that before he opened his mouth. And yet when he said we're going to do that, he also said, you guys told me it couldn't be done, that I was crazy, which of course is completely false, No one ever said anything like that to Biden, no matter what he said once during the campaign. Everybody just sucked up to him and petted him like their favorite lapdog. So then it was to have at least 50% of the schools open by, what was that, in his first 100 days. And it turned out that was pretty much already the case. But those were all schools in red states. Then when Jen Psaki was asked what exactly they meant by schools open, she said that they wanted in-person learning at least 1 day a week. That's a direct quote. 1 day a week was their goal. Well, a good 48% of schools had gone beyond that point already. So they took credit for that one. Again, not having done anything to actually make that happen. You'll remember the CDC came out with its guidelines on school reopenings, and those guidelines contained language taken exactly from talking points given to them by the American Federation for Teachers. Basically allowing union schools to remain closed based on sketchy data. But one of the ones Biden has come out with on his own was having 70% of Americans at least partially vaccinated by Independence Day, by July 4th. Not going to make it. Not going to make it. Vaccinations have tailed off considerably over their highs in April. And now we're just doing a few 100,000 a day, if any more than 180,000, 160,000 a day, and that's falling off. And I predict it's going to fall off even further when I get to the stories I'll be showing you in the after show regarding the COVID vaccines and young people and things that are happening there, things that definitely need to be talked about. But we've got here from this article from the Daily Wire by Charlotte, Pence Bond. NBC News reported that, quote, the Biden administration planned to concede Tuesday that it will likely fall short of President Biden's goal of partially vaccinating 70% of American adults by July 4th. It added Jeffrey Zients, the head, or is it Zients? I can never remember. Let's go with Zients. Jeffrey Zients, head of the White House Chinese Communist Party virus response team, was slated to announce that the administration has hit its 70% vaccination target among Americans ages 30 and older, and is poised to reach that threshold for those 27 and older by the 4th of July. But it will take, quote, a few extra weeks to include all Americans 18 and older to that group, he is to acknowledge. And good afternoon, Twin Crier. So nice to see you in the Trovo chat, as always. So yeah, a goal that they did set for themselves that they're not going to make. Once again, and what else have we got here? $15 an hour minimum wage, that's off the table. Ending the filibuster, that's off the table. Packing the Supreme Court, that's off the table. Let's see, the $6 trillion, the $4 trillion infrastructure package, that's off the table. $6 trillion budget, that's not going to happen. Failure after failure after failure. Talking tough to Putin, well, that certainly didn't happen. Instead, he went to Putin and said, please, here's a list of things I'd really like it if you didn't attack. And as I said last week, that comes out one of two ways. One, anything off that list, I've set myself to not be able to retaliate against you for doing it. Or, here's a list of things that would really hurt us and we'd really like you to stay away from. Because it would be bad for us if you did something. I'm not going to tell you that there are any hard repercussions for doing what I'm asking you not to do, but please just consider not doing it. That's all we got out of... our ambassadors returned. Yeah, boom. Great, our ambassadors returned. Big whoop. The rest of it was all smoke and mirrors. So let's look at the vaccination rates. I've used this chart before. This is from ourworldindata.org. This is the COVID vaccinations chart. And let me take a few of these. No, actually, what we've got here is a list of a number of different countries that have been hard hit by the Chinese Communist Party virus. Going from top to bottom, we've got Canada, Israel, United Kingdom, U.S., Italy, Germany, France, Brazil, Mexico, and India. And then in this graph here in black, we have the vaccination rates for the world. You'll notice that big spike just before just after the middle of June. That's when China added its vaccination numbers on the 10th of June. So watch this chart and watch the vaccination rates. So coming right out of the bat is Israel. Absolutely screaming, beating everyone to death. The United Kingdom started to catch up, but with a purely, and started to grow and then tail off. Let me pause it here, April 26th. Here you can see the Israel tailing off after it had vaccinated over 60% of the population. Meanwhile, the United Kingdom had just hit 50% at that point after slowing down a bit after some really remarkable growth. And the U.S., you can see here, had a pretty much steady growth, even though Biden made his incredible announcement about doing something that was already being done. Nothing that the Biden administration did increased the rate of vaccinations in the U.S. because President Trump and Project Warp Speed had laid out all of the infrastructure needed to get those vaccinations in people's arms. So good going there. And forgive me for missing you earlier. Good afternoon, Green Badger Outdoors. Sorry I didn't miss you. Pardon me. So sorry I missed you coming in. I guess I can't talk and hold something in my hands at the same time. So there's the United States doing its best. There's Canada hitting it after getting a very slow start. And then here's the world graph. As you can see, pretty slow, especially up through late February, early March, and then starting to grow a little bit. Okay, so continuing on from here, you can see Canada crossing the line and beating us, then beating the UK, then beating Israel. Now it's starting to tail off. The United Kingdom meeting Israel, and the United States still lagging behind, barely above Italy, and not too much more above Germany. France would be the bottom of these developed countries as far as percent vaccinated, still below 50%, with Germany, Italy, and the U.S. As of June 21st being just above 50%. But again, look at the U.S. line, and you can see how it has tailed off since basically late April, early May. And it's still decreasing a little bit. So that's what's going on in the U.S. So currently, let me see here. What do I have? Do I have anything else? That's all I wanted to do there. Okay, moving right along. Fort Lauderdale this weekend. You guys may remember that Juneteenth was declared a federal holiday recently, and we just had it this weekend, and I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did not know it was a thing because I did not live in, I did not go to school in Texas, and Juneteenth has been a pretty common celebration in Texas because that's where Juneteenth happened. Juneteenth is the day when the last group of slaves in the Southwest, Southwest, learned that they had been freed. It was the reading of the Emancipation Proclamation and the end of the Civil War, and that was Juneteenth, and has been celebrated in Texas ever since. And now it's a federal holiday. Great, no problem at all. I'm happy. I think it's a momentous day in U.S. history, and if the federal government wants to blow more of our money out the door, then fine. There could be worse things to do it on, so I don't have a problem with it. Not that anyone would care one way or the other how I felt about it. But there was a number of pride parades that then kind of doubled up as Pride Juneteenth parades over the weekend. But there was something in Fort Lauderdale called the Wilton Manors Pride Parade. I have no idea what that stands for. But there was an accident. Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz, U.S. Representative from Florida, and another Congress critter were seated in a car. Or wait, I'm sorry, no, they were standing near a car and near some people who were going to walk in the parade when a pickup truck suddenly surged forward and knocked several people over, killing one, injuring two, and I guess just missing Wasserman Schultz and the other person. And people rendered aid immediately. The police were right there. And the Fort Lauderdale mayor, Dean Trentalis, went in front of the cameras immediately and called it a terrorist attack. He said it was obvious that this was meant to assassinate Wasserman Schultz and the other Congress critter, and that there was no doubt in his mind that this was a planned attack. And it was quickly ruled that that was not the case at all. The driver of the truck got out, was interviewed by police immediately, a 77-year-old man who said his foot slipped off the brake and hit the gas, and before he could stop the truck, it hit people. That's what happened. A tragedy, a pure, unadulterated tragedy. Michael North says the brake lines gave out. I had not heard that, Michael North. Interesting. The brake lines gave out. Okay. That's a rare occurrence. You don't hear that happening very often. Unless you're pulling a plot line from an old 1960s insurance fraud thriller, in which case, good reference. But it was an accident. But the Fort Lauderdale mayor wasn't the only one who came out and said that. A bunch of people on Twitter did the same thing, as they always do. Far be it from the left to let the facts get in the way of a good narrative. Yeah. You were guessing. Okay, Michael North, you were guessing. Now, as I understand, he said his foot slipped off the brake and hit the gas, and that's what happened. And again, the guy's 77, so age could have been a factor. But Trentalis gave a qualified apology Sunday night at the vigil. At the vigil. Let me read his statement from before the vigil. And again, this is Mayor Trentalis of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Quote, "Last evening, at the start of what was to be a celebration of pride for the LGBT community and commemoration of our hard-won victories for equality, our community faced the worst of tragedies. The grief of our LGBT community and Greater Fort Lauderdale as a whole is palpable. I was an eyewitness to the horrifying events. It terrorized me and all around me. I reported what I saw to law enforcement and had strong concerns about what transpired, concerns for the safety of my community. I feared it could be intentional based on what I saw from mere feet away. Law enforcement took what appeared obvious to me and others nearby and investigated further, as is their job. As the facts continue to be pieced together, a picture is emerging of an accident in which a truck careened out of control. As a result, one man died, 2 others were injured, and the lives of 2 members of Congress were at risk. My heart breaks for all impacted by this tragedy." That's, Schultz was in that car, by the way. I just see that in the article here. Schultz was in that car, not walking. Okay, but this is what Trentalis said right after the accident happened. "This is a terrorist attack against the LGBT community. This is exactly what it is. Hardly an accident. It was deliberate, it was premeditated, and it was targeted against a specific person. Luckily, they missed that person, but unfortunately, they hit 2 other people." Yeah, I got no words. I've got no words, honestly, for that kind of horrific knee-jerk reaction. Just this shows you, I will say, what we're dealing with on the left. Anything that happens, they're going to blame on us. Anything, they're going to blame on us. And pray they're right. Before any of the facts are out, based on pure emotions, they're going to blame it on us. There was that incident over the weekend of the Chicago couple. The Puerto Rican couple. They were driving down the road on Puerto Rican Day in Chicago, flying the Puerto Rican flag, and the guy misjudged his lane and nudged a parked car and came to a stop. A bunch of people ran up, dragged him and his wife out of the car and shot them right then and there, just executed them. The woman's fighting for his life. The guy was DRT, dead right there. And no one came to help them. And someone on Twitter said that it was a MAGA guy flying a Confederate flag. I'm not kidding you. A blue check mark on Twitter said it was a MAGA guy flying a Confederate flag, and he deserved it. They'll even blame us for dying when it's not us who died. And then just walk away from it as if nothing happened. La 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 la. La 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 la. Let me quote Twin Crier in the Trovo chat from earlier. Twin Crier says, I'm never taking the jab for the Controlla virus. Controlla virus. I like that. Very good. Okay. Now, speaking of the left, using lies to further their narrative, one of the things we've been hearing over and over again about the pipelines coming through Minnesota and other parts in the Northwest from Canada is that they are violating sacred tribal ground, and that the entire Indian community, but they prefer or don't care if you use Indian or Native American. I know this. I worked with a guy who lived on the reservation as a youth before he moved out, became an air traffic controller, and he told me no one cares. That whole thing with the Washington Redskins, no one cares. They just do not. But we're told by white liberals that everything that you can think of that could inflame a community does in fact inflame a community, and they know for sure. So again, one of the things with these pipelines is they violate sacred tribal grounds, and that all of the Indians, all of the Native Americans associated with these grounds are up in arms and are demanding that these lines of construction be stopped immediately, and this terrorizing of their sacred ancestral grounds needs to be stopped. Well, Fred Lucas with Fox News points out that, in fact, they're lying through their teeth. This particular article is in reference to something called the Line 3 pipeline. And it's going to be carrying oil from Canada into the U.S., into a place in northern Wisconsin, to be specific. It's replacing an older pipeline that's getting old, that's getting long in the tooth and needs to be upgraded. And climate activists, now that Keystone has been stopped, have lined up and are attacking Line 3. Now, recently, hundreds of quote-unquote activists descended on the construction site, a construction site in Minnesota, most notably Mahnomen, 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 Minnesota. Hundreds of these people came on to one of the construction sites for Line 3 and tore it apart. They damaged tens of thousands of dollars worth of vehicles and other equipment. They broke open into construction sheds, threw everything around. They tore down all of the erosion fencing. In case you don't know, whenever you're driving along a construction site and you see that kind of fencing with some type of a barrier along the bottom, that's to prevent rain runoff from contaminating local areas. It's designed to channel the water to a specific spot and keep it from contaminating the ground with any runoff from fuel oil or things like that. And it also prevents erosion lines. And they tore all that down. Just completely destroyed the site as best they could. They also tried to trap the workers there. There were people on property at the time. They tried to trap them there and keep them from leaving. So not only do we have felonious assault on property damage, but we also have potential unlawful restraint. Well, here's the thing. One of the main companies that are contracting for this pipeline, Gordon Construction, is owned by a Native American and has Native Americans working for it. Native American lands get money from these pipelines. They lease the land to the pipeline company and get payments. No pipeline, no payments. And the owner of Gordon Construction was on Fox News, and he said the following, quote, "I'm a contractor for excavation, and all of my equipment on site was vandalized. For the most part, a majority of the people are for the pipeline. Everybody enjoys gasoline and plastic products. The opponents are shielding themselves with Native Americans. Most of the protesters were white. Line 3 has brought back millions of dollars to the reservations." Close quote. Quoting the article, more than 500 Native Americans are part of the Line 3 workforce, and the project could benefit Native American-owned small businesses in the region with a total of 5,200 construction jobs. On June 8th, a day after the protest, vandalism, and property damage, Gordon joined 5 other Native business leaders representing their firms in the tribes of Fond du Lac Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa, the Boise Fort Band of Chippewa, the Leech Lake Band of Ojibwe, and the White Earth Nation. Quoting a letter that they issued, this not only created a hardship for our workers, it created additional challenges for our companies. Protests that disrupt work, damage property, and threaten our employees while claiming to be on behalf of our Native people is creating additional tension and consequences within our tribal communities. They also intentionally create a false narrative that there is no Native American support for this project and the economic impacts and opportunities it brings to our people. Now, there are, of course, certain Native American activists who use their status as a basic, what's what I'm looking for, justification for their their all-out attacks on these projects. When obviously, as I just described to you here, it's not the case at all. Not only are not all Native American tribes behind stopping these pipelines, but a great number of them are actually benefiting from these pipelines. And the environmentalists just don't care. Again, you can't begin to get the left to understand that just because you shut down a pipeline, it doesn't mean that oil's not going to go anywhere. That oil's been bought and paid for. It's going to get shipped. It's just now, instead of the pipeline, it's going to cost more money because it has to be shipped in smaller batches by trucks and by trains, which are more expensive than a pipeline in the long run. And trucks and trains make emissions, diesel emissions. Soot is a big part of diesel emissions. And pipelines don't do that. And the way welding technology is now, the way pipe fitting technology is now, pipelines don't leak nearly as much as they used to. Certainly no more than you would get if you had a truck roll over and spill. Or train derailment, and then they catch fire and burn uncontrollably for a day. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous that the left thinks they're making a difference when in fact they're just making things worse. Now, where would we be without a Hunter Biden story? Honestly, where would we be? I almost want to start a counter for this event, just like we've got a counter on Fox News now for Harris still not doing a press conference on the border. I believe she's up to 92 days now without a press conference after being named border czar. At least 90. But another counter that we should have is how long it's been since we were told that Hunter Biden was going to divest his interests from that Chinese government-linked investment firm he started and got over $1.5 billion worth of money commitments from the Chinese government for his private equity firm, a business that he had no experience in whatsoever, but somehow got that money, the first big chunk of it, just a few days after leaving China aboard Air Force Two with his dad, who was then vice president. Sure, nothing to see here, folks. First, it was $1 billion, and later on, China added another $500 million to the figure. And as President Trump said at the time, and has continued to say, he's talked to every top-end investment firm in Wall Street, the ones who are at least talking to him, and they all said the same thing. There's no way that they could have gotten that money, even though they have decades and decades of experience doing that exact kind of work. Whereas Hunter set up a company with no experience, as Trump always says, zero experience Hunter, no experience, and walked away with ultimately $1.5 billion in equity. And of course, the fees are where the money comes in, the fees. And Hunter gave himself 10%, with another 10% held over for the big guy. Remember? We saw those emails, 10% for the big guy. And we all know that the big guy is Joe Biden. But turns out that Hunter still hasn't relinquished his 10% equity stake in Bohai Harvest RST Equity Investment Fund Management Company. And this is by Jerry Dunleavy from the Washington Examiner. I like Jerry Dunleavy a lot. He's an excellent reporter. But yeah, Chinese business records still list Hunter as having a 10% equity stake in Bohai Harvest. Yeah, still. We were told back in February by Psaki herself. By the way, Jen Psaki, in case you don't remember, let me find it here. Jen Psaki is, of course, the arrogant, condescending, dismissive, mendacious, passive-aggressive, patronizing, self-righteous, smug, lying White House press secretary. Jen Psaki said in February that Hunter has, quote, has been working to unwind, unquote, his 10% stake in the firm. Of course, initially, we were told that Hunter was going to leave the firm by the end of October 2019. But he didn't submit the paperwork until spring of 2020. Three Chinese business websites all show updates with Hunter Biden's name being removed from the BHR board of directors in April 2020, but the sites also currently show a limited liability corporation, Skinny-Taliz, owned solely by Hunter Biden, as still being a, quote, sponsor shareholder with 3 million won, or $464,000, invested in the company, purportedly comprising a 10% stake in the China-based business venture. And there's more, but that basically gives you the rest of it. Rules for thee, folks. Rules for thee. All right, final one for the YouTube block, and we will be out of here. This story's been cooking for a week. I missed it last week, and it got hot again over the weekend. But this is an exclusive from redstate.com. Very, very excellent article. We've been hearing rumblings about a top Chinese, otherwise known as CHOP, a top Chinese government official having been extirpated from the clutches of the CCP and becoming a U.S. Informant on the Chinese government. Rumors have been circulating. Former intelligence officials have said that the rumors are false, but then again, we had former intelligence officials saying that Hunter Biden's laptop was Soviet disinformation, Russian, that's how old I am, Russian disinformation, so that's how much you can trust former anything in this country. But according to Red State, the defector is former Vice Minister of State Security, Dong Jingwei. and he defected in mid-February, flying from Hong Kong to the U.S. with his daughter, Don Yang. Dong is or was a longtime official in China's China's Ministry of State Security, also known as the Guanbu. His publicly available background indicates that he was responsible for the ministry's counterintelligence efforts in China, i.e. spy catching, since being promoted to vice minister in April 2018. If the stories are true, Dong would be the highest level defector in the history of the People's Republic of China. Now here's the thing. This guy may very well know the following. And we're being told through Red State and through the Washington Free Beacon that Dong has provided the Defense Intelligence Agency with the following information. This is a list of bullet points. Early pathogenic studies of the virus we now know as SARS-CoV-2. Models of predicted COVID-19 spread and damage to the U.S. and to the world. Financial records detailing which exact organizations and governments funded the research on the virus and other biological warfare research. Names of U.S. citizens who provide intel to China. Names of Chinese spies working in the U.S. or attending U.S. universities. Financial records showing U.S. businessmen and public officials who've received money from the Chinese government. Details of meetings U.S. government officials had, perhaps unwittingly, with Chinese spies and members of Russia's SVR. And finally, how the Chinese government gained access to a CIA communication system, leading to the death of dozens of Chinese people who were working with the CIA. Here's my favorite part of this article, though. Dong has also provided DIA with copies of the contents of the hard drive on Hunter Biden's laptop, showing the information the Chinese government has about Hunter's pornography problem and about his and Joe's business dealings with Chinese entities. Some of the files on Dong have provided a light on just how it was that the sale of AHNC's automotive and their stealth technology to Chinese military manufacturer AVIC Auto was approved. Again, according to sources, Dong told DIA debriefers that at least a third of Chinese students attending U.S. universities are People's Liberation Army assets or parts of the Thousand Talents Plan, and that many of the students are here under pseudonyms. One reason is that many of these students are the children of high-ranking military and party leaders. As we initially reported, again quoting the article, DIA has high confidence in the veracity of Dong's claims. So, according to one anti-Trump CIA-friendly blog, this demonstrates what sources told Red State today, quote, this defector has the rest of the intelligence community and the LEO community scared, oh, the hell with it, shitless. I'm going to say it out loud. Folks, here's my take on this. If this is confirmed, then Biden is absolutely on the hot seat regarding China. More so than any other president in U.S. history. And he is going to have to take big, bold, aggressive action, including at least canceling our debt with China. Just writing off all the money we owe China. Zero. Boom. Off the books. He's going to have at least do that. And much, much more. Or he may be impeached come 2022. Or I should say 2023. Now, I think he's going to be impeached anyway. I really do. But this would be the icing on the cake. He has to absolutely come balls out against China if this gets confirmed near the top. He'll have nowhere to hide. And even after the bullet points I just read you, the fact that they've got Hunter's laptop, which we've known all along that everybody had a copy of, this could be huge. This could be absolutely huge. This could, if the information gets to the light of day to a large extent, this could just blow Biden out of the water completely, even before 2023. This could completely delegitimize his presidency. And I want to thank Red Dog. I want to thank Electric Dog for providing me the link to the story I had honestly forgotten about it with my memory the way it is, you guys. I'm sure you understand. But I had forgotten about this story, and Dog provided me the link this weekend while I was doing one of my game streams. And I jumped on it right after I got off the stream, and I'm very happy I did. So big thanks to Electric Dog, again, my technical producer and king of the links, for providing this to us. And we're going to move on from here to the after show. So YouTube, it is time I say goodbye to you. Of course, we will be back here tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern for another hour of fun, frivolity, and facts. Remember, we prefer truth over facts here on AHNC, All Hat No Cal, on the Daily News Rodeo. But do not forget, as well, as you see alternating on your screen, that every Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern for about 3.5 hours, I live stream a PC game. We're currently doing Far Cry 5. I've just moved into Faith Seeds territory, sniped a few people dancing around a campfire high on bliss, and I'm hopefully going to be able to track down a deer real soon and get some skin and bait in my inventory. But that's a whole nother thing entirely. And then on the weekends, of course, no news rodeo, but I do like to game also starting at 9 a.m. Eastern, Saturday and Sunday. And sometimes, if I'm up to it, I even game in the afternoon, an hour after I break for lunch. We'll see what happens. So, YouTube, until the next time,